when you bring new things into a society, you can either, it's like the balance of the force. Yeah. You can either use it for good or you can use it for evil. And what happens when there's something new, people have a tendency to overdo it. They abuse it. When Star Wars came out, everybody said, oh, it's a silly movie, it's just a bunch of space battles and stuff. It's not real. There's nothing behind it. And I said, well, there is stuff behind it. It's not just a space battle. There's more to it than that. It's much, much more complicated than that. But nobody would listen. So they just said, oh, well, it's simple, and we like the spaceships, we like the stuff. So they said, fine. So the spaceships and that part of the science, fantasy, whatever, got terribly abused. And of course, everybody went out and made spaceship movies. And they were all horrible, and they all lost tons of money. And you say, well, you know, there's more to it than that. You can't just go out and do spaceships.
My son, Nathan, he'll say, oh, Dad, they've cloned your hand. There's an evil Luke. Really? He tells me I have a beautiful redheaded wife, which they kindly provided 10 years after I finished doing the movies. So it's overwhelming, the amount of ancillary material, the video games, the comic books, the role-playing games, etc., etc.
Phantom Doubleday Dell Audio Publishing presents Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire by Steve Perry. He looks like a walking corpse, Shizor thought. Like a mummified body, dead 1,000 years. Amazing he is still alive, much less the most powerful man in the galaxy. Shizor stood 4 meters away from the Emperor, watching as the man who had long ago been Senator Palpatine moved to stand in the holocam field. The viewer on the other end of the hololink would see a close-up of the Emperor's age-ravaged face, shrouded in the cowl of his dark Zaidcloth robe. The man light years away would not see Shizor, though Shizor could see him. It was a measure of the Emperor's trust that he was allowed to be here while the conversation took place. The air in front of the Emperor coalesced and blossomed into the image of a figure down on one knee, a caped humanoid dressed in jet black, face hidden under a full helmet and breathing mask. Darth Vader. What is thy bidding, my master? If Shizor could have hurled a power bolt through time and space to strike Vader dead, he would have done it without blinking. Wishful thinking. Vader was too powerful to attack directly. There is a great disturbance in the Force, the Emperor said. I have felt it. We have a new enemy, Luke Skywalker. Skywalker? That was Vader's name long ago. Who was this person with the same name? Someone so powerful as to warrant a conversation between the Emperor and his most loathsome creation. More importantly, why had Shizor's agents not uncovered this before now? Shizor's ire was instant, but no sign of it showed on his imperturbable features. The Feline did not allow their emotions to burst forth. No, the Feline ancestry was not fur, but scales. Not mammalian, but reptilian. Not wild, but coolly calculating. Such was much better. Such was much safer. He could destroy us, the Emperor said. He's just a boy. Obi-Wan can no longer help him. The Force is strong with him. The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi. Son of Skywalker? Vader's son? Amazing. If he could be turned, he would become a powerful ally. Yes. Yes. He would be a great asset. Can it be done? He will join us or die, Master. This was most interesting. Most interesting indeed. The Emperor finished his communication and turned back to him. Now, where were we, Prince Shizor? The Dark Prince smiled. He would attend to the business at hand, but he would not forget the name of Luke Skywalker. Chewbacca roared his rage. A stormtrooper grabbed at him, and he knocked the man flying. 2 more guards came in, and the Wookiee battered them aside. In another second, one of Vader's troops would shoot Chewie. Leia stared, unable to move, unable to believe this was happening. Han started yelling at the Wookiee, trying to calm him. Chewie, there'll be another time. The princess, you have to take care of her. They were in a dank chamber in the bowels of Cloud City on Bespin, where Han's so-called friend, Lando Calrissian, had betrayed them to Darth Vader. The stink of liquid carbonite permeated the air. 2 stormtroopers jerked Han away, backed him onto the lift plate over the makeshift freezing chamber. As Leia watched, the words erupted from her unbidden. I love you. And Han nodded at her. I know. The lift plate lowered him into the pit. He locked his gaze with Leia's, held it, until the cloud of freezing vapor boiled up and blocked their view. Leia sat up abruptly, her pulse racing. The sheets were sweaty and wadded around her. A bad dream, she thought. That's all it was. But no, it was a memory. Shizor leaned back in his folding chair and looked at the woman standing on the opposite side of the desk. Guri was beautiful, with long blonde hair, clear blue eyes. There was a coolness about her that was easily explained if you knew that she was an HRD, a human replica droid. She could pass for a woman anywhere in the galaxy. She was his personal assistant, and she was the only one of her kind programmed to be an assassin. She'd cost him 9 million credits. She was worth every decacred. Beautiful and deadly. He himself was over 100 years old, but he looked 30. He was tall, had a top-knot ponytail jutting up from his otherwise bald head, and a hard body crafted by stim units. He also exuded natural pheromones that made most human stock species feel instantly attracted to him. His skin color, normally a dusky green, changed with the rise of those pheromones, shading from the cool into the warm spectrum. His handsomeness and appeal were tools, nothing more. He was the Dark Prince, Underlord of Black Sun. He could also kick a sunfruit off the top of a tall humanoid's head, and he could lift twice his own weight over his head. His galactic influence was surpassed only by the Emperor and the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader. He was the third most powerful being in the galaxy, but about to become second, if his plans went as intended. It had been months since he'd overheard the Emperor and Vader talking of a threat they'd perceived, and now, preliminaries accomplished, Xizor was ready to move in earnest. Only an hour remained before his meeting. It was but a short walk through the protected corridors to Vader's. No hurry. He did not want to arrive early. By going there instead of insisting that Vader come here, he was giving away an advantage. No matter. That was part of it. There must not seem to be any contention between them. No one must suspect that he felt anything but the greatest respect for the Dark Lord of the Sith. Not if his plans were going to succeed. Leia sat in a bad cantina in the bad part of Mos Eisley. Calling this place a dive would have elevated it 4 notches. Lando must have done it on purpose, picking this pit as a meeting place just to get a rise out of her. For a time she'd hated him, until she understood that his apparent betrayal of Han had only been a ruse to save them from Vader. Lando had given up a lot for that, and they all owed him for it. Chewbacca sat next to her, glowering at the assorted patrons. The only reason Chewie had left her with Luke after the last encounter with Vader was to go with Lando to Tatooine to set up Han's rescue. Once Leia had arrived, Chewie had stayed as close to her as part of her wardrobe. It was irritating. Lando had explained it. Chewie owes Han a life debt. That's a big deal among Wookiees. Buy you a drink, beautiful? Somebody said behind her. Leia turned. It was Lando. Behind him were the droids, R2-D2 and C-3PO. I think we've got Slave 1 spotted. That was Boba Fett's ship. The bounty hunter who had taken Han from Cloud City. Where? A moon called Gaul, circling Tsar, a gas giant out in one of the far rim systems. The information is third-hand, but the informant chain is supposed to be reliable. I've got a contact in that system, an old gambling buddy who does a little freelance cargo delivery. Name is Dash Rendar. He's checking it out for us. Leia smiled. Freelance cargo delivery was a euphemism for smuggling. Lando listened. Yeah, I'm afraid so. Then he translated for Leia. Gaul is an imperial enclave. Got a couple of destroyers based there, plus all the attendant TIE fighters. If Fett's ship is there, it won't be easy to get to him. Xizor left his 4 bodyguards in the antechamber and went into Darth Vader's personal meeting room. The man was, though he did not know it, a mortal enemy. 10 years ago, Vader had a pet project, research on a biological weapon. He established a hazard lab on Xizor's home planet of Faline. There had been an accident at the supposedly secure facility. In order to save the planet's population, the city around the lab had been sterilized. 200,000 Feline had been killed by the sterilization lasers crisscrossing the doomed metropolis from orbit. Among the dead had been Shizor's mother, father, brother, 2 sisters, and 3 uncles. He'd been off-world at the time, cementing his control of Black Sun. Otherwise, he would have been one of the victims himself. He had never spoken of the tragedy, and he had been patient. Vader cut into Shizor's thoughts. We shall need 300 ships, half of them tankers, half dry cargo transports. Standard Imperial delivery contracts. There is a large construction project of which you are aware. Can you supply the vessels? Yes, my lord. You need but tell me where and when you desire them, and I will make it so. Again, Shizor allowed himself a tiny smile. Everything was going according to plan. Luke stared at the little furnace as if so doing could hurry the process. Inside, the ingredients for a lightsaber gem cooked at an incredible heat and pressure, intense enough to collapse Durasteel into a liquid ball. Luke looked around the place that had been Ben Kenobi's home. It was a small place on the edge of the Western Sea, made of crushed local rock mixed into a slurry and sprayed onto frames to harden. Ben's house looked as if it could have been a natural rock formation, smoothed and rounded by centuries of desert weather. Ben, struck down by Vader on the Death Star. For Luke, the memory was equal parts grief and rage. According to the book, which he was sure Ben had meant him to find, the best lightsabers used natural jewels, but there weren't a lot of the kind he needed lying around on Tatooine. He'd managed to collect most of the electronic or mechanical parts in Mos Eisley. Power cells, controls, a high-energy reflector cup, but he'd had to make his own focusing jewel. If everything went right, he'd be able to cut the jewel, polish and install it, tune the photoharmonics, and then he'd only have to hit the switch to have a working lightsaber. Suddenly, he felt something. For a moment, he had a flash of recognition. Was it Leia? He buckled on his blaster and went outside. A hot wind blew grit off the desert. In the distance, he saw a thin dust cloud. Somebody was approaching across the barrens from Mos Eisley. Leia, Chewbacca, R2, and 3PO followed Luke and Lando into Ben's small house. As soon as they explained why they'd come, Luke was ready to hop in his X-Wing and leave. Lando held up a hand. Hold on a second. First we have to make sure Fett's on Gaul. Then there's the little matter of the Imperial Navy. Luke grinned. Wedge is in command of the Rogue Squadron now, and he told me if I ever needed them, they'd come running. Back in his private meeting room, Shizor asked Guri, You have assembled all the information on Skywalker? Yes, my prince. Very well. Let the bounty hunters know the price for Skywalker's head. Black Sun's hand must be invisible. There must be no mistakes. There will be none, my prince. Guri stood silently as Shizor considered his plan. Vader wanted Skywalker, wanted him alive to give to the Emperor. If Vader should fail in his quest, if it could be made to appear that he had never really intended to produce this young would-be Jedi for the Emperor, if it could be made to seem that he had killed the boy rather than risk facing him, if the Emperor thought that his trusted right hand, Darth Vader, his own creation, had failed him, even the Dark Lord of the Sith would not be immune to Imperial anger. Shizor knew he had found the perfect weapon with which to finally defeat Darth Vader. The death of Luke Skywalker. The Millennium Falcon broke from hyperspace in the vicinity of the gas giant Tsar. Lando and Leia preferred that they all stay together, but Luke had argued that if any trouble showed up, they would have 2 armed ships to meet it, rather than 1. Lando was a good pilot, but Luke trusted his own skills more. He kept the little ship close to the Falcon as they entered the system. What was Boba Fett doing this far out on the rim? He saw the blips on his scope about the time he got the call over his comm.
Hey, Luke.
Welcome to the end of the galaxy. Hey, Wedge. How's it going, buddy? Here they came, the Rogue Squadron, a dozen ships like his own. Wedge continued. It's good to see you again, Luke. I hope you've got something interesting cooked up for us. Things have been a little slow lately. Leia looked around at the cavernous cast-plast prefab building that Wedge Antilles and his Rogue Squadron had set up as a base on a moon in the planet Shadow opposite Gaul. Wedge led them to a corner of the chilly building where a table and a holoproj unit had been set up. A man sat sprawled in a one-piece cast-plast chair, looking as if he were asleep. He came to his feet and made a low, sweeping theatrical bow. Princess Leia, how delightful of you to visit us here in our humble castle, Your Highness. Lando made introductions. This is Dash Rendar, thief, card cheat, smuggler, and an okay pilot. Dash's grin increased. What do you mean, okay pilot, Calrissian? I could fly rings around you in a one-winged hopper with a plug jet. And modest, too, Leia said. Dash bowed low. I see that the princess has a keen eye to go with her stunning beauty. Oh, brother, Leia thought. This guy is going to lead us to Boba Fett? Wedge showed them the holographic maps and recorded images of the moon where Boba Fett's ship was supposed to be docked. The Imperial Enclave was home base to 2 Star Destroyers. One standard destroyer carried a wing of TIE fighters. Each wing was made up of 6 squads, which meant 72 TIEs per destroyer. 144 of them against the 12 in the Rogue Squadron. That made the odds a hair less than 12 to 1. Dash considered the information. If we're gonna sneak in the back way, it'll take some pretty fancy flying, treetop level stuff to avoid local sensors. Might have to drop into the Grand Trench Canyons. He grinned at Luke and Wedge. If you can keep the TIE fighters and the destroyers busy, I can get Lando to where Boba Fett's ship is. Dash turned to Luke. You want to see something, kid? He opened the door to another large hangar-like room and heard Luke exclaim, Wow! A ship sat perched on the cheap plastic flooring. It had smooth lines, heavy cannons mounted above and below, and it shone with a dark gleam like chrome. Dash presented his ship as if it were a close friend. The Outrider. Inside his X-Wing, Luke took a deep breath. You ready, R2? This is Rogue Leader. Lock your foils into attack position, accelerate to sub-6, and acknowledge. Wedge acknowledged Luke's orders. Rogue 1, copy. Rogue 2, that's affirmative, lock and load. Rogue 3, I copy. They were as ready as they were going to get. The Dayside destroyer lay dead ahead, and by now its long-range sensors would have spotted the incoming X-Wings. Rogue 6 called out. Here they come! A score of TIE fighters spewed from the destroyer's flight bay ports. Double up on the forward shields. Attack speed, targets of opportunity. Yee-haw! Luke had to smile. There was nothing in the universe that felt like flying into combat. On the Millennium Falcon, Leia crouched down behind Chewie and Lando in the control cockpit. 3PO stood behind them, braced more or less in the doorway. Do be careful, Master Lando. We're awfully close to the tops of those trees. Ahead of them, Dash flew the Outrider, and the wind of his passage was enough to fan the tall evergreens below. Lando flew past jagged outcroppings of reddish rock that looked like giant fangs. The Falcon zipped through a 3-sided tunnel with what seemed like very little clearance below and to the sides. Dash had said that there was a long-range Imperial sensor post at the edge of the Great Plateau above the canyon they were negotiating. The only way to avoid being spotted was to sneak in below the sensor scan. The Outrider twisted on its long axis like a screw. Dash came on the comm. There it is, dead ahead. Leia leaned forward to see. There it is. There's Fett's ship. Been fun, people. See you around. The Outrider pulled up in a hard climb and rocketed toward space. Lando called, Where are you going? Hey, you didn't pay me to shoot, only to guide. I'm out of here. Dash, blast you. Oh, yeah. 3PO broke in. Lando's attention came back to the situation before them. Company, we've got half a dozen TIE fighters on our tail. Leia was already on the way. I'll take the dorsal turret. As the rogues sped from the battle, Luke felt a sudden wave of something he couldn't quite identify wash over him, like a sense of danger that couldn't be ignored. Luke. Obi-Wan. He jerked the control stick between his knees to the side without questioning further. The beam from a laser cannon flashed past, but there weren't any ties behind him, only Rogue 6. As he watched, Wes's X-Wing altered course to follow him. Wes, what are you doing? Wes yelled a short burst of expletives. Luke, something's gone wrong with my R2 unit. It's taken control of my ship. My stick is dead. To complicate things, one of the TIE fighters let loose with a blast of weapons, barely missing Luke. Luke pulled the stick back into his belly and hit full thrust. Behind him, Wes's X-Wing replicated his move, trying to stay with him, shooting all the time. The TIE fighter ran into Wes's fire and shattered. Luke jockeyed the X-Wing around. Wes copied his move and fired. Wes's ship hammered at him, splashing a glancing shot off the rear shield. Luke focused himself, pinpointed the weapon control nexus, and fired. A hit. Now Wes's guns were dead, and he couldn't fire the lasers or the belly missiles. Wedge, see if you can get a magnetic line on Wes, and let's get out of here fast. Uh-oh, what?
Boba Fett's ship is taking off.
Follow it.
How? There's a wall of Imperial fighters between us.
Go around them. She was too close to lose Han now. I hate to be the one to say it, but I have a bad feeling about this. Back at Rogue Squadron's secret moonbase, the malfunctioning R2 unit exited the ship and settled to the ground. Luke turned to R2. R2, you ever seen anything like this before? R2 moved closer, extruded an interface, and plugged it into the other unit. Uh-oh. R2 says the droid wasn't malfunctioning. It was programmed to shoot at me. The Falcon arced away from the shipyard and dived between two half-constructed towers, twisting so it flew sideways. Leia unbuckled herself from the turret and hurried to the control cockpit. Lando, what are you doing? Saving our lives. I used every trick in the manual, plus a few I made up, and I couldn't get past those fighters. There were too many of them. What about Boba Fett? I lost him. Yeah, me too. But we can't do Han any good if we get scattered all over the landscape. It was all Luke could do to restrain himself. He almost took a swing at Dash. Wedge saw. Easy, Luke. But Luke was outraged. You just left them there? Hey, kid, I was hired as a guide, so I guided. End of story. Dash turned and ambled off. One of the sensor crew ran over. We've got a ship coming in. No communications, but the scopes say it's a Corellian freighter. The Millennium Falcon. They were alive. Leia watched Luke take off in his X-Wing with R2. It had been tough to persuade him to go back to Tatooine, but she had managed to convince him that she needed to go do some business for the Alliance, and someone had to be there to keep an eye out for Boba Fett. As the X-Wing's engines faded away, she called Dash Rendar over to her side. Are you available for a job? Sweetie, I'm always available if the money is right. I want you to go to Tatooine and keep an eye on Luke. Dash raised an eyebrow.
Bodyguard? Sure, I can do that. Kid won't like it if he finds out.
So, stay out of sight. Somebody tried to kill him, and I think they'll try again. After she paid him half up front and Dash was gone, Leia went to find Lando. Let me pose a hypothetical question.
If you don't mind a hypothetical answer, go ahead.
What would be the best way to contact somebody high up in Black Sun?
What?
Somebody just tried to kill Luke. Maybe it was Vader, maybe not. Black Sun has a vast spy net. They can find out who's responsible. You have the connections, right?
It's still a bad idea.
Lando?
Yeah. I know a few people.
R2 fired a crackling beam of electricity at Luke. Tatooine's desert morning air sizzled with a spark that arced a full 2 meters long. Luke, in the grip of the Force, snapped his newly completed lightsaber to block it. The charge cascaded harmlessly from the blade. Too easy. He heard a distant drone getting steadily louder. Engines. Somebody was coming to call. Maybe we better get out of sight. Hide inside, R2. With R2 safely in Ben's house, Luke circled around to a sandy hillock and crouched down. The noise of the engines was an echoing racket now, and he recognized the source. Swoops. Swoops were long, raped repulsor craft with a plow-like scoop on the front. The two-person vehicles were fast and maneuverable, but hard to control. Most people associated them with outlaws. The swoops roared in and began to circle Ben's house. There were 8, 9, a dozen of them. All carried blasters. Luke wasn't as well hidden as he thought. One of the men spotted him, jerked his blaster up, and fired. The beam sizzled past him, turned sand into muddy glass.
Blow the little runt to B-spin, boys!
Luke hurried to a couple of large boulders to find better cover. Luke set himself, and as the second swooper approached, he swung his lightsaber in a feint and slammed his boot into the rider. His kick toppled the attacker from the swoop. Luke hopped onto the swoop, grabbed the handlebars, and twisted the start ring. He could be at Beggar's Canyon in minutes. No way they'd run him down there. As he throttled for a sharp turn, Luke heard a hoarse yell.
He's got help! We ain't gonna win this one, Spiker. Let's burn!
Luke looked over his shoulder. A swoop, engines off, dropped in silent freefall. The rider fired a blaster as he fell, missing but making the swooper scatter. The descending swoop got to within a handspan of the ground and stopped. Man, that was flying. The man pulled his helmet off. Luke couldn't believe it. Dash, what are you doing here?
Saving your butt from swoop scum, it looks like.
Vader is no longer your #1 admirer. And it would seem more than coincidental that this woman, who is known to be close to Luke Skywalker, is probing Black Sun.
Your suggestion?
Kill her. Kill her Wookiee and gambler companion.
I think not. Meet with her. We should find out exactly how much she knows and to whom she has told it. Then, I want you to bring her to me.
Guri was about to leave for Rhodia when Shizor stopped her.
Before you go there, I have another errand for you. There is a secret document in my personal files under the heading Root. You know what it is?
Yes.
Download it and see that it gets into the hands of our Bothan double agent on Bothawi. Make certain he knows that we are responsible for its delivery.
He could feel Guri's reluctance and said so.
You disapprove.
It does not seem to be in your best interests to do this, she said.
Ah, but it is. By having Black Sun put this tidbit into the rebels' hands gratis, they will be much more apt to trust us. In the unlikely event the Empire should lose this war, the Alliance will remember us as friends and not enemies.
So where is Leia? Luke asked Dash. They had returned to Ben's house, each on a swoop. Luke had not been pleased that Leia had sent Dash to keep an eye on him.
Gone to Rhodia to connect up with Black Sun.
Luke nearly dropped the container of cold water he held.
Black Sun? Is she out of her mind?
The representative from Black Sun had arrived. All set? Leia asked.
Yes.
Lando would be hiding with his blaster drawn when the Black Sun rep showed up. Chewie would watch the door from the hall, and 3PO would stay with her. Leia moved to a desk at one end of the room and sat behind it. Leia took a deep breath. Send her in. Whatever Leia had been expecting, Guri was not it. The woman from Black Sun was strikingly beautiful. Moving with the grace of a professional dancer, she sat across from Leia and spoke. How may we serve you, Princess? Direct and to the point, this woman. But Leia had been too long a diplomat to blurt out what she wanted to a stranger. There needed to be some ritual circling first. 100 stormtroopers surrounded the building, blasters ready to cook anybody who twitched. 2 troopers emerged, dragging a man between them. They brought him to where Vader stood and released him. The prisoner tottered but stayed on his feet.
Do you know who I am?
Yes, Lord Vader.
Good. Where is Skywalker?
He escaped. Vader clenched his fist and the man clawed at his throat.
I know he escaped, fool.
The man choked. His eyes grew wider. Vader waited for a few seconds, then opened his hand. The man gasped. Despite his anger, Vader was pleased. The boy's skill and power were increasing.
I understand that someone else wanted Skywalker. Who?
We heard that it was Black Sun. Vader stared at the man. Of course.
And this other bidder wanted Skywalker alive?
No, my lord. They wanted him dead. All right, Leia Organa. I think this has gone on long enough. Excuse me? Guri held up her empty cup. As Leia watched, she squeezed it in one hand, and it shattered into tiny bits. I can do that to your head. You probably have a weapon hidden somewhere, but I warn you, I am much faster than you. Leia played it out. Suppose I believe you. What do you want? You are going to accompany me from this place. You will tell the Wookiee in the hall to stay here as we leave. Otherwise, he dies.
I don't think so.
Whoever or whatever you are, I bet you aren't faster than a blaster bolt. The doors slid open. Lando stood there, weapons aimed at Guri. Chewie came in from the hall with his bowcaster leveled at Guri's back. Guri looked at them. You have the advantage, it would seem. What do you propose? Luke is in danger, and this person who says she represents Black Sun is our only link to them. I'll contact the Alliance and have them supply us with a small ship. Excuse me, Guri said. Leia turned to look at her. What? There is an easier way. What are you talking about? You want to go to Coruscant and meet with the leadership of Black Sun. I was sent to provide you escort for such a trip. Then why the threat? It was the fastest way. Why should we trust you? Because I work for Prince Shizuo. As Guri's ship dropped out of hyperspace onto Coruscant, she insisted that Leia and Chewbacca put on disguises. It would not be wise for them to be seen with her, she said. Leia dressed herself in the disguise of an Ubi's bounty hunter who went by the name Bosch. Chewie had reluctantly agreed to have his fur cut and dyed, mottled with large patches of black. Guri handed them a set of coordinates. After you clear customs, meet me here. A guard sent by Guri led Leia and Chewbacca through a labyrinth of corridors and passageways into turbolifts and down yet more passageways. Eventually, they reached two tall, carved wooden doors. The guard stepped aside. In there. Leia entered the room, Chewie behind her. A tall man, no, not a man, but an exotic-looking alien, rose and smiled at her. Ah, Princess Leia Organa. And Chewbacca, welcome. I am Shizuo. Leia's pulse sped. She felt a sudden giddiness as if her brain had fogged over. So here she was at last, facing the person in charge of the galaxy's largest criminal organization. And he was absolutely gorgeous. Shizuo was pleased. The young woman sitting across from him was every bit as delightful as he had hoped. Thus far, they had only spoken of trivial things, but already he had allowed some of his potent pheromones to seep into the air. The Wookiee didn't seem to notice, but Leia had responded to the chemical attractants he exuded. She felt drawn to him, he knew, and he knew how to use his advantage. You must be tired from your long trip. You should refresh yourself, change clothes, relax a bit before we delve into serious matters. I didn't exactly bring my wardrobe with me. Shizuo waved a hand. Such things are easily remedied. I'll have my servant Husmin show you to your quarters. I have pressing business to which I must attend. Refresh yourself and rejoin me in a couple of hours. Leia was shaken. As Husmin led her and Chewie down another convoluted hallway, she had to take several deep breaths to calm herself. What had that been about? That emotional attraction that rolled over her like a tropical ocean breaker. She'd never been one to stare dumbstruck at a handsome face before. Besides, she was in love with Han. Husmin stopped. This is your room. The Wookiee will be in the next suite. The black carpet in the room was so deep, Leia nearly sank to her ankles in it. There was a white leather couch, a round bed with black sheets, and a comforter under a translucent canopy held up by 6 carved posts. A white desk with a computer on it and a black chair tucked neatly under the desk occupied a niche next to the bed. A quick scan of the clothes in the closet revealed that they were first class, and in her size. She blinked. Could it be a coincidence? The leader of Black Sun just happened to have a closet full of clothes in her size? Leia put on a dark bodysuit before she slipped into a dress. Then she made her way along the corridor to Prince Shizor's sanctum.
Do come in, Princess. Perhaps your friend would care to dine while we conduct our negotiations.
Leia nodded. Yes. Wait outside, Chewie. From Chewie's tone, he did not care for that at all, but he did as she asked. The door slid closed between them. When Leia turned around, Shizor had moved to a small bar behind the leather couch. Something to drink? Lorrainian brandy? Green champagne? Tea would be fine, Your Majesty. She moved to the couch, sat on one end. When he rounded the couch to bring her the tea, his hip brushed against the back of her head. It sent a shock through her, a rush, like dropping in freefall. He handed her the cup and sat at the other end of the couch. Leia felt a pang of disappointment that he hadn't sat closer to her, and a stab of worry at that thought. Shizor regarded her as he sipped at his green drink. So, the Alliance might be interested in doing business with Black Sun? She scrambled to collect her thoughts. Yes, we that is to say, the Alliance, we have been considering such an alliance. Alliance? Considering an alliance? What's the matter with you, Leia? Have you lost your wits? Yes, war does make strange bedfellows, doesn't it? He smiled. Bedfellows. They talked for a while, Leia feeling herself slip more and more under the strange spell he seemed to be casting on her. Then Shizor leaned over. There came a pounding at the door. Leia pulled away from him, straightened her rumpled dress. I better see what he wants. Leia touched the door controls, and the Wookiee burst in. I'm in the middle of a delicate discussion here. Can't it wait? Leia turned to Shizor. He seems upset. Maybe I'd better go and see what he wants. In the hall outside Shizor's sanctum, Leia glared at Chewie. He knew what she and Shizor had been doing in there. He sensed it somehow. He was protecting her, and protecting Han. The desire she'd felt evaporated. Shame flooded into her. That was not like her. She would never behave that way, certainly not with a stranger. Was he using some kind of drug? She looked up at Chewie. I think maybe we better consider an alternate plan. As Vader expected, the Emperor was not convinced. You disappoint me, Lord Vader. I sense that your judgment is shaded by something of a personal grudge here. No, my master. I am merely concerned about the criminal's treachery. If he is, in fact, trying to kill Skywalker... Really, Lord Vader? I would certainly need more evidence than a rumor from some bounty hunter to move against so valuable an ally as Prince Shizor. Has he not put his vast shipping fleet at our disposal? Vader tried to keep his voice steady and even. I have not forgotten, but I have also not forgotten my promise to bring Skywalker to the dark side. But not if he is slain before I can get to him. Leia took a deep breath and opened the door to Shizor's chamber. The head of Black Sun sat on the couch where she'd left him, the glass in his hand. I was beginning to worry about you. She could still feel the charisma he exuded, but now she could resist it. Maybe her anger had become a shield upon which his attraction splashed and was repelled. Maybe the drug had worn off. It didn't matter why, as long as it worked. He went to meet her, bent to kiss her. She slammed her knee up between his legs hard. He groaned and shoved her away as he stumbled back a step. When he could straighten up, his face was cold. He seemed to have changed color, too, and looked cooler, an ashen green.
So, you resist me.
He shook his head.
Here is the drawback to bright and strong women. Sometimes they are bright and strong when you least want them to be.
He bowed.
I am pleased that you are a worthy adversary.
He finished the bow.
Guri?
A panel slid aside in the wall behind him, and the HRD stepped into the room. Shizor turned to her.
It seems you were right. Take her to her room and lock her in.
The image that ghosted into being surprised them. A Wookiee with a bad haircut. Luke didn't recognize him until he started talking. Yelling was more like it. Lando translated.
Leia is being held on Coruscant by Black Sun. Yeah, they tried to kill Chewie, but he escaped. She made him go. It wasn't his idea.
Abruptly, the transmission ended. What happened? Luke asked.
I don't know. Just went blank.
Let's go.
To Tatooine, right?
Wrong.
Somehow I knew you were gonna say that.
Luke and Lando flew into Coruscant in the shadow of a gigantic cargo freighter. Then, disguised as beggars, made their way through Coruscant's underground tunnel system. Shizor left Leia's room and returned to his sanctum to dress for his appointments. She had repeatedly refused his polite invitations to dine with him, so he had informed her that he had allowed Chewbacca to escape deliberately, knowing the Wookiee would lead Luke Skywalker back to Leia, and thus to him. Our agents say that a Corellian freighter answering the description of the Millennium Falcon is hidden somewhere in the Hasamadi warehouse district near the South Pole.
Are you saying Skywalker and the Gambler have come here? Have eluded the Imperial picket line and landed on the planet as bold as you please?
Any half-wit pilot who knows the freighter trick can manage it. Our own smugglers do it all the time.
All right. Check it out. If it is Skywalker's ship, have it watched. When he shows up, have our people kill him. Circumspectly, of course. Right, and slow down, pal. Okay. Leia thinks it's Black Sun that wants you dead, Luke. Yeah, they're behind the assassination attempts, not the Empire.
The dialogue ended abruptly as a blaster bolt lanced through the shop's open door and shattered a flower pot hanging from the ceiling. Outside the shop, 4 non-uniformed men with blasters loosed more shots. Luke, Lando, and Chewbacca dropped to the floor. Chewie raised his blaster and fired several rounds blindly back at the shooters.
Is there another way out of here?
Luke asked. Lando cursed.
They've got us boxed.
Before they could think about what they were going to do, somebody outside the back exit screamed. There came the sound of several blaster discharges. Luke looked up from where he lay prone on the floor, plant dirt ground into his stolen uniform, and saw a figure walking across an alley.
Rendar! What are you doing here? Saving your butts, looks like. Follow me.
Luke took a deep breath, let it out slowly, and sought to clear his mind. Now that they had the time and space, he wanted to try again to reach Leia. He focused, said the name aloud. Leia. Then he reached out through the Force. Leia, I'm here. I'm coming for you. It was not telepathy so much as empathy, and since it had happened before on B-Spin, she recognized the sensation quickly. Luke. She took a deep breath and let part of it out, held her silence. Luke, I'm here. All right, Dash said. Here's the idea. We know that the really big buildings on this planet extend as far under the surface as they do above it. A building as big as this one generates a lot of waste. They have to break the solid waste down and pump it away. Therefore, we are talking about pipes. Lando nodded. Chewie points out such drains would be hard to locate, given that every building will have similar systems. It's probably a monster maze under the ground. Right, Luke said. But there will be fewer guards posted on a sewage drain than the doors above ground. Assuming we could find a guide, you are saying you want us to wade through kilometers of sewage to get into this place? Dash smiled. Exactly what the guards would think. Who would be that stupid? My Lord Vader, came the voice from behind him. He turned. The man who had been feeding him information on Shizor's activity stood there. You have something for me? Yes, my lord. We have uncovered a pirated copy of certain planetary files for Faline, thought to be destroyed. Why should I find this interesting? It contains some material about Prince Shizor's family. His father was king of a small nation on Faline. There was a regrettable incident. All of Prince Shizor's family were killed. A light dawned in Vader's mind. That explained much. It was not simply that Shizor considered Vader a competitor for the Emperor's affection. It was personal. Dash's contact, one Benedict Vidcun, was more than willing to scan the systems, make maps, lead them himself, or whatever else they might want, as long as they had plenty of credits. He knew the sewers by heart. The sludge in the tunnel was greenish-black, thick, oily, and it stank worse than anything Luke had ever smelled before. The tunnel was lit by a row of dim overhead glow sticks, but it was bright enough to see as much as they wanted. They were startled by something that sounded as if somebody had dropped a couple of head-sized stones into the inky liquid. Hey, Dash said, look out! Luke spun, pulled his lightsaber from his belt, just in time to see a large eye pop up on a fleshy stalk attached to something slithering through the murky effluvia toward him. A Dianoga. Luke stepped closer and brought the blade down, chopping the Dianoga's body in half. The five of them continued to wade through the mire. Finally, Vidcun pointed.
Just ahead, there.
Fine. You go first, Lando said.
Here's the key to the rat grate.
He handed a plastic card to Lando.
See you.
He turned to leave. Dash stepped in front of him.
Where do you think you're going? Hey, I'm done. I got you to the building. I got you the floor plans for the place. That was the deal.
Dash scratched his head.
Well, I guess you have us there. That was the deal, all right. But, see, there's been a little change in our itinerary. We'd like you to come along until we come to a place where you can safely wait for us.
We insist, Lando said. Vidkun shrugged.
Well, since you put it that way.
And before anybody could react, he pulled a small blaster from his coverall and started shooting wildly. The first shot seared past Luke. The second hit Dash in the hip. The engineer didn't get off a third shot because Dash snapped his blaster up and put a bolt right between the man's eyes. Luke went to him.
Dash? I'm okay. Just scorching me a little. Why'd he do it?
Lando said.
We weren't gonna hurt him. Guy like that, he figures he's sold out. Why shouldn't we?
Dash said.
Let's hope the guards didn't hear the shooting.
Luke peered through the half-fogged cover plate on the recycler's door.
Uh-oh. Guards. 6 of them.
Behind him, Lando tried to keep his shock to a whisper.
6? To guard a sewage plant?
Dash laughed softly.
So what? That's only 1.5 each.
Luke looked again. True, there were 6 men only a few meters away, but 4 of them sat at a table playing cards, blast rifles stacked against the wall. 2 others stood near the card players, watching and apparently offering advice, but they had their weapons slung over their shoulders. Dash was right. If they moved fast, they could cover the guards before they had a chance to use their rifles, then disarm them, tie them up, and be on their way, with nobody else the wiser.
Okay, here's the deal. Dash, you pop the hatch. I'll go first. Chewie is behind me, then Lando. You come last. On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Luke leapt out, brought his lightsaber up into a ready stance. Nobody move. Chewie jumped out behind him. His wet feet slid on the floor, and he fell flat on his back. Lando tried to leap over Chewie, but tripped on the fallen Wookiee and sprawled face down. Dash dove over Lando and Chewie, shoulder rolled once, fired. So much for sneaking in quietly. Shizar was paying the cultural minister his monthly bribe when Guri stepped into the room. The Dark Prince made polite noises and dismissed the minister.
What?
A problem in the sub-sub basement.
What kind of problem?
She shrugged. We don't know. That area is still not wired for surveillance, and the guards are not answering. Shizar was not especially concerned. Down where the pipes and conduits and heavy durasteel beams were thick, engineers had not been able to resolve some comm wave interference.
It's either a comm glitch, or Skywalker is faster and smarter than we thought. Have the drain sensors picked up any armies marching in under the building?
No.
Good. If it is Skywalker, he's probably alone, or perhaps the Wookiee is with him. Send a unit to check it out.
2 squads are already on the way.
Sending them off on your way out. Security will catch Skywalker. There is nothing to worry about.
Luke blocked an incoming blaster beam. He left the comlink on his belt and yelled down at it. We're busy here, 3PO.
But Master Luke, there are men coming toward the ship, men with guns.
Great, just what he needed. Luke deflected another beam, leapt forward, and found himself within reach of the man who'd shot at him. He whipped the lightsaber down, and the hand holding the blaster dropped to the floor. Luke spun and thrust a sidekick at the guard, hit him squarely on the nose, and knocked him flat. The other guards were down as well. 3PO!
Master Luke, oh, what shall we do?
Take the ship out of there now, just like we talked about. R2 knows the systems, you can operate the controls. Call me back when you're in the air. Keep it suborbital and under the stratospheric security scanners. You got that?
Yes, Master Luke.
We've lost contact with the second unit of guards, Guri told Shizar.
Same area?
No, 4 levels up. Shizar frowned. That was well above the normal area of comm problems in the castle, and an unlikely coincidence.
Put security on full alert.
Already done. Could it be Skywalker? Had he somehow gotten into the castle without being detected?
Cancel my appointments.
Master Luke, we have successfully left the building. Luke pulled out his comlink. 3PO, where are you?
Somewhere in the sky, Master Luke. What? Oh, be quiet. I'm flying it correctly.
What is going on?
I'm sorry, Master Luke. Thanks to R2's woefully inadequate instructions, we've accidentally destroyed an advertising billboard and a broadcasting tower.
All right, listen. Bring the Falcon to the coordinates I told you. Hurry, and gain enough altitude so you don't hit anything. They rounded another corner, zigzagged through a side corridor, and sprinted toward a door at the end of the hall. They saw the door start to slide back. Dash and Lando brought their guns up. Luke yelled, "No! Don't shoot!" The door opened wide to reveal Leia. She and Luke ran to each other and embraced. Leia stepped back and looked at him. "Took you long enough." She wrinkled her nose. "Yeah, what have you been swimming in?" They hurried down the corridor to a surveillance nexus, where they could access the feed and see holograms of the holocam input. "Where is the image?" Gory asked the computer.
Holocam and sensor feed on level 15 is currently non-operational.
Display level 17. Again the image stayed blank. Display level 18.
They're on 17. They're blowing out the breakers, so we won't see them. If they got into 18 yet, that floor would also be gone. Skywalker is doing this. We'll go to level 20. I will dispatch him personally. Shizor and Guri stepped out of the turbo lift and into the corridor. Shizor saw them first. 5 of them, Leia included. The Dark Prince smiled. He turned sideways, lowered his blaster, and extended it one-handed, as if he were shooting targets in a competition. Lined his sights up on Skywalker's left eye. Luke spotted the tall alien just as he brought his blaster to bear. He jerked his lightsaber from his belt, flicked it on, and let the Force claim him. He felt the impact of the shock as his blade deflected the incoming bolt. "Look out!" Leia yelled. The droid woman Lando had told him about, Guri, hurled a chair at Luke. He couldn't use his saber to cut it down and risk another bolt from the shooter. Chewie brought his bowcaster up, fired. The chair exploded into shrapnel. A dozen guards rounded the corner and started shooting. Lando reached into the small backpack he wore. Dash took the ball from Lando. Don't shoot! Lower your weapons!
Skywalker held out the device. "You know what this is?"
I have a pretty good idea. What do you want?
"To leave, my friends and I."
If you release the bomb, you'll die. So will your friends.
The boy shrugged. "As it stands, we're dead anyway. We have nothing to lose. How about you? You ready to give all this up?" He waved at the building around them.
I think you're bluffing.
"Only one way to find out. Your move." Shizor thought about it.
All right. Leave.
Nobody will stop you. 4 of them edged past the guards, who nearly fell on themselves trying to get out of the way. Skywalker stood facing Shizor alone. Skywalker, you've caused me a great deal of trouble. That's too bad. You had it coming. I could still shoot you. You could try. Skywalker flicked the lightsaber on. It was a standoff, and Skywalker knew it. Suddenly, the Dark Man reached into his pack and produced another shining ball. Shizor had an awful premonition. No! But the man tossed the bomb into the chute. You have 5 minutes to leave the building. If I were you, I'd get moving. As they ran toward the landing pad, Luke heard something. He reached out with the Force, couldn't find anything. He waved the others on. Go ahead, I'll be right there. He pulled out his lightsaber, flicked it on. He heard a woman's voice behind him. Behold, the Jedi Knight, the man of legend. The droid woman called Guri stood there. You have caused my master much misfortune. You should die for that. Luke aimed the sword point at her. You have that blade, and I am unarmed. She held her hands away from her sides, empty palms facing him. He had maybe 3 minutes. The smart thing to do would be to cut her down and get moving. He clicked the lightsaber off, rehooked it to his belt. What do you want? A test. My master pits himself against the deadliest opponents he can find. There are no men my equal in hand-to-hand combat, except, perhaps, if the stories are true, a Jedi Knight. This building is going to blow to pieces in 3 minutes, and you want to play games? It won't take that long. Are you afraid to die, Skywalker? He spread his feet slightly and dropped into a fighting crouch. Guri smiled and slid into her own fighting stance. She took a long sliding step and punched. Luke backpedaled, but her fist hit him in the belly hard. She followed up with an elbow, but he dived away, rolled, and turned. She slapped him next to the ear, and he went down, dazed. If he didn't do something fast, she was going to kill him. The Force. Let it work for you, Luke. He managed her breath as Guri raised her hand, formed now into a blade instead of a fist, a grin of triumph lighting her features. He came up, pivoted, thrust his open palm against the descending chop and shoved it aside. He used his left leg in a sweep that caught Guri behind the right ankle. Her feet left the floor, and she fell flat on her back. Luke pulled his lightsaber, ignited it. Lying on her back, stunned, she managed to smile. You won fairly. Go ahead. Luke lowered the blade, shut it off. Come with us. We can have you reprogrammed. She sat up. No. If somehow my memory is downloaded, it will be fatal for me and my master. We have much to answer for. Better to kill me now. He shook his head. There's been enough killing. I'm not adding to it today. He nodded at her once, turned, and ran. Shizor's personal ship, the Virago, was on the top level of the palace. He hurried on board and closed the hatch. He touched the lift controls. The Virago rose from the pad and into the bright sunshine. He was a few hundred meters away, clear enough to be safe, when he saw a beat-up Corellian freighter coming at him. The ship seemed to be out of control, corkscrewing on its horizontal axis, pitching and yawing, and barely missed him. What kind of idiot was in control of that vessel? Luke pulled his comlink. 3PO, cut your drives. Bring it in on the repellers only. And hurry! The ship hopped upward 100 meters as if hurled from a sling. Bring it down, you fool droid! Lando yelled. The Falcon drifted down toward them, then dropped like a stone. Dash shoved 3PO aside and slid into the cockpit. His hands danced over the controls. The Millennium Falcon spun away. As it did, Luke saw the building shake, then drop straight down like a tower of sand with the base kicked out. Smoke rose and blasts of fire erupted skyward. Giant electrical conduits sprayed multicolored sparks. The ship rocked under the impacts. Dash hit the thrusters, and the Falcon leapt upward. He would fly to his Skyhook. He had his own navy positioned in and around the space station. Several corvettes, a few frigates, hundreds of rebuilt surplus fighters. By the time Skywalker's ship made it into orbit, his navy would be waiting. As the Falcon made its escape, the group stood together and heard Dash's voice over the comm.
Thanks for the ride.
Dash had called his droid, who had brought the Outrider to the Falcon, doing a much better job of flying than 3PO and R2, and now he was on his way out. Luke said more fondly than he would have believed possible a few days earlier, "You really ought to consider signing on with the Alliance.
You're a good man, and we could use you. Thanks, Luke, but
We've got an unmarked Corvette coming in at 270, and 4 fighters at 359. Those aren't Imperial ships. Who are these guys? We've got to move. Chewie, Leia, the guns." Chizor stood in his command center on the Skyhook, surrounded by a transparent steel plate that allowed him an almost 360-degree view of space. He heard the voice of his commander engaging the rebels in space.
Prince Chizor, we have located the Corellian freighter.
We are engaging it now. It should be destroyed momentarily. Chizor nodded. Don't be too sure, Commander. They seem to be extremely lucky.
They'll need more than luck, my prince. We have them completely surrounded. They'll need a miracle.
Fighters came straight at them, cannons winking. Suddenly, the attacker exploded. The Falcon blew through the cloud of debris. It pattered like hard rain against shields. "Good shot!" Luke yelled. "Who got it? Was that you, Leia?" "Not me. Must have been Chewie." Lando said, "Well, then who did?"
Hey, Luke. Okay if we join your party?
"Wedge! What are you doing here?
Waiting for you. Dash's droid sent us a distress signal. Sorry it took so long to get here.
Red leader standing by.
Through coming in 20 degrees.
I copy. Moving into position. I copy. We're starting our attack run on the main power 3.
Stay away from those light guns.
Got it.
Pride power mine tonight.
And then he saw the TIE fighters screaming toward them, a dozen at least. Lando said, uh-oh. Yeah, I was wondering what was keeping them. Luke saw the TIEs flash past. He watched them take out two of the unmarked attackers. Next to him, a communications tech waved frantically. Shizor fixed the man with a baleful stare.
This better be good. Your life hangs in the balance.
It's Lord Vader. He wants to speak to you. Vader's image swirled in front of him. Shizor went on the offensive immediately.
Lord Vader, why is the Navy attacking my ships?
Because the ships under your orders are engaging in criminal activity.
Nonsense! My ships are trying to stop a rebel traitor who destroyed my castle.
You have 2 standard minutes to recall your vessel and to offer yourself into my custody.
The coldness at Shizor's core blossomed uncontrolled into an angry heat. He tried to keep his voice calm.
I will not. I will take this up with the Emperor.
The Emperor is not here. I speak for the Empire, Shizor. I warned you to stay away from Skywalker. Recall your ships and surrender into my custody, or pay the consequences.
Vader watched the chronometer, enjoyed the time melting away. Not much left for the Dark Prince now. 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 5.
We must surrender or we will be blown to pieces.
Commander's transmission ended abruptly. 2, 1.
Commander, destroy the Skyhook.
Dash didn't give him time to react.
Heads up, boys. Follow me. Somebody just opened us an escape hatch.
Luke looked out at the swarming debris. Are you crazy? We can't fly through that.
What's the matter, kid? Don't think you can do it?
Luke laughed and headed for the wreckage. Lando yelled, "Look out, Dash!" Luke glanced up to see a block of shattered skyhook the size of a Resiflex smash into the Outrider. "Oh, man," Lando said. He's gone."
Captain, I do not understand. Why do you not want Commander Skywalker and the others to know that we survived and made the jump to hyperspace?
Well, as much fun as that was, I don't see us joining the ranks of that crazy rebellion. Too dangerous and too much money to be made elsewhere, my friend. On top of that, someone from Black Sun will take Shizor's place. And when that happens, you can bet your servo motors they'll send every thug in the galaxy after us. But if everyone thinks we're dead, who's gonna be looking? Besides, it's good to be remembered as a martyr without actually having to be dead, wouldn't you say?
Dark side of the Force. My son, it is the only way. Luke. Luke.
What a forsaken place this is. Why couldn't that bounty hunter have taken Captain Solo to a more pleasant environment? We're leaving. But what about Master Luke? I thought he was going to rescue Captain Solo. You mean we're going to that horrible fortress alone? We're doomed. Of course I'm worried, and you should be too. Lando Calrissian and poor Chewbacca never return from this awful place. Don't be so sure. If I told you half the things I've heard about this Jabba the Hutt, you'd probably short-circuit.